Hello and welcome to Brief Encounters. And welcome to Making a Difference, Inspirational Women Leaders in Environmental and Energy Law and Policy, a podcast sponsored by the DC Bar and the Women's Bar Association of DC. I'm Kathryn Caballero of the DC Bar Steering Committee for the Energy, Environmental, and Natural Resources Community, and
I'm Cathy Pagano of the Board of the Women's Bar Association of DC.
Today our guest is Beth Mullin, the Deputy General Counsel at the DC Department of Energy and Environment. After earning degrees from Mount Holyoke, the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies, and New York University School of Law, Beth worked as an assistant regional counsel and section chief in the Denver office of the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Beth worked as an author and policy expert at the Environmental Law Institute and as the executive director of the Rock Creek Conservancy. We'll hear about Beth's legal career, her expertise in local energy and sustainability law, and in product stewardship, all of which focus on her passion, moving the needle forward to protect the environment. Today, we'll also be asking Beth for tips to help with your career path. And just so you know, all participants are participating in their personal capacity and do not represent the views of the federal or local government. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you for having me.
Beth, we're excited to discuss your work at the DC Department of Energy and Environment, where your department implements over 60 laws to protect the residents and resources of the District of Columbia and the nation. Since 2016, the district has been implementing Climate Ready DC, the district's plan to adapt to a changing climate, and Clean Energy DC, which charts DC's pathway to cutting carbon emissions. How do you assist with implementation of these types of programs?
Well, first, a little bit about the programs. DC has a plan to cut its own greenhouse gas emissions by half. The main focus is the building sector. Buildings are by far the biggest source of greenhouse gases in the district, accounting for about 74% of our emissions. Our department is working in multiple ways to meet the targeted reduction and is really a leader in the United States and working with cities across the world in these areas. One of our programs is energy benchmarking. Since 2010, owners of large buildings have been required to report their energy use to DOEE. This publicly available data allows them to compare their energy use with other similar buildings across the country and hopefully use the information to become more energy efficient. My work has been on updating the regulations for this program and enforcement against the buildings that fail to report. The second program is our building energy performance standards. Now buildings don't just have to report, they actually have to meet performance standards. If they don't meet the standard, they're required to implement energy efficiency measures or pay a substantial penalty. This is a brand new program and among the first of its kind. My role has been to give legal advice for the regulations that were adopted in October and for a guidebook for the program that was just released last month.
You are also integrally involved with product stewardship laws at DOEE. What products are covered by these stewardship programs, and do you anticipate an expansion of the program?
Our programs currently cover 3 products: electronics, paint, and batteries. Each program is slightly different, but they all require the producer of the products to take responsibility for recycling or the end-of-life handling of what they produce. Our battery program is brand new. It's one of the first in the country. We just began implementation, are now writing the regulations for it. In terms of what's coming next, there's a new bill under consideration by the DC Council related to plastic bags. We already have the bag fee, but this new law would require retailers to provide a method for people to return their plastic bags and shipping products for recycling. That means, you don't just get a bag, you would be able to bring it back to the place where you got it, and they would have to provide for recycling of it.
That sounds like a great program, Beth. We all know what a problem plastic pollution is.
Yes, and shipping products.
Yes.
If everybody's like ordering things, you get all this plastic, and it's what do you do with it? And so the idea would be have that easily recyclable.
That'd be great for the district and for the nation. I understand that the district was one of the first jurisdictions to create a green bank to finance clean energy, energy and resource efficiency, and resilience. What is a green bank, and how do you support the green bank in your legal role?
A green bank is a financial institution that lends money to help meet sustainability goals. The DC Green Bank mobilizes private investment for green projects and programs by giving loans, loan guarantees, credit enhancement, bonds, or other financing mechanisms so these projects can get off the ground. The Green Bank is an instrumentality of the DC government. My role has not been a big one. I've reviewed it and provided some legal advice on documents here and there. The Green Bank is actually an independent entity. It's not part of DOE, although we are closely aligned. For example, the Green Bank can help finance energy efficiency projects to meet our building energy performance standards and to install solar systems and other types of projects that the district is trying to promote to meet its sustainability goals.
You're clearly wearing many hats here. This is quite impressive, the breadth of your portfolio.
Yes.
I understand that you also have a role as the Deputy General Counsel in promoting environmental justice. How does the department incorporate environmental justice in their work, and what is your role there?
Well, I lead the department's Office of Enforcement and Environmental Justice, and our department takes equity and environmental justice very seriously. So, there's really a huge effort to make sure these considerations are being taken into account throughout the department. My particular focus is enforcement. We enforce a huge range of laws covering an amazing variety of topics, everything from air pollution to lead paint to the plastic straw ban. As DC is in a way both a state and a local government, and also deals with, implements federal laws. So we have a huge range of what we do. And we are really working to try to take environmental justice more comprehensively into account in all our work.
That's fantastic. Your portfolio, again, is quite broad. You've been discussing enforcement, all aspects of environmental justice, even the plastic straw ban. You're talking about regulatory counseling, defensibility of regulations. I'm also where you supervise administrative litigation and advise on grant applications. You've had quite a few significant opportunities to assist your clients at the department. What's one of your favorite memorable moments or success stories from the work that you've been engaged in?
Well, thank you for asking. I guess what comes to mind is recently our enforcement team created an online interactive map that shows where our enforcement actions have taken place. I really love maps, and our enforcement map is now front and center on the DOE website. It was really fun to participate in the design of it and thinking about how to present information so that people could, use it and understand it. And I love playing with the map. You can click on the dots and find out where violations were. And I actually have to tear myself away from it, because when I go in, I say, oh, let me look here, let me look there. And what was that? So it's really a fun project and something that I enjoyed a lot.
I'll definitely need to look that up. I was unaware of that. What about you, Cathy?
It's brand new.
Great. I think all three of us are going to have a hard time tearing ourselves away from the map. That's a great effort. And it also shows, as Kathryn was mentioning, Beth, the great breadth of what you do. It spans all sides of the issue and quite fascinating. Let's talk about your legal career. It's clear that you've been passionate about the environment in all of your work. How has your career path led you to your current position? And how did taking advantage of different opportunities boost your career and help you in your current role?
Well, it all started when I was 14. I was walking through a really beautiful park across the street from my house that had, towering trees and a creek winding through it. And I saw an oil sheen on the water in that amazing, beautiful spot on that creek. And I just had sort of an epiphany. I thought, that's it. I'm going to spend my life trying to stop things like that. And that's really what kept me going through all these years. I immediately started doing volunteer work related to environmental protection and started what my parents view as a long educational journey to help myself be effective. And over time, I've had a variety of jobs and a variety of focus areas. I've really changed, kind of direction several times, but I've always had the same goal. And, I've enjoyed working both for the government, for various nonprofits. I've worked at the international level, at the regional level, and the local level. And I've found that I really like the local level. You can see with your own eyes, what you're doing. And, if we, take an enforcement action, I can go see the place, where we've done it. And here in DC, it's really wonderful to be able to work on the local level and the global level at the same time, and that what we're doing here really can be, used as a model for other people, kind of around the United States and even around the world. And we are certainly sharing our successes and failures so that, other people can learn. And, because, when you're on environmental issues, we're all in it together. And it's really important to be able to kind of spread what you're doing.
So exciting and just very, very moving, Beth. And did you experience any challenges along the way?
That's a yes, absolutely. I was out of the workforce for a number of years to care for children. And I kept, a foot in the door for at least some of that time by working part-time at the Environmental Law Institute. But that work eventually kind of dried up. At that point, I did some writing just so I could, in a way, stay doing what I really cared about. Although my big focus was kids for a long time. And there were some years where I was really concerned about whether or not I'd be able to get back in any kind of meaningful way. I had years, in a way, kind of almost despair of thinking, my career's over and I'm not going to be able to get back. But what helped me kind of get through it and reconnect was working with a nonprofit. I was very passionate about Rock Creek Park, and I started just doing volunteer work. I was actually just in the woods, kind of doing volunteer work on my own. I'd always loved creeks and loved Rock Creek, and so it was sort of just just in a way following my passion with the time that I had and to the extent I could. I connected with a fledgling nonprofit just starting up that eventually became known as Rock Creek Conservancy. It was Friends of Rock Creek's Environment at the time. And I was there just sort of on the ground floor of that organization getting started. When they were able to hire their first staff member, their first paid staff, it was for a part-time position for 1 year as the executive director. And I applied and got the job. And I wanted to keep the job. So to do that, I had to grow the organization so that it could continue paying me to do the work. And when I left 6 years later, I was full-time. We had several staff members and we had mobilized thousands of volunteers a year to do work in the park. And it's a terrific organization. It's why, people should be a part of it if they're not. And it became very successful. It's a wonderful issue and a wonderful work. But I reached the point where it didn't really fit my skill set any longer. I kind of like the startup. I like the, kind of growing the organization. And when it became bigger, it just wasn't the right position for me anymore. I kind of worked myself out of the job.
Wow. Oh, Beth, this is truly inspirational. Do you have any suggestions for women attorneys who may be facing similar challenges?
Well, it's hard to make it all work. But I think the thing that's important to remember is you can do things in phases. And for me, when I had little kids, it seems like it would last forever, but it doesn't. And you just need to be kind of flexible and persistent. One piece of advice is that if you work for a big firm, try not to lock yourself into an expensive lifestyle, because if you do, it will cut off. You won't have as many options because you're really going to have to keep that work to be able to maintain the lifestyle if that's what you want to do. And for me, working for a nonprofit or the government, particularly local government, is a way to really be able to do meaningful work on a more senior level later on. So if you have worked a while, have kids, and then want to get back in, you need to really kind of be strategic about that. Women are much more likely to be able to have senior roles in government or a nonprofit than in a law firm. So, keeping that in mind is important. And one thing to also keep in mind is that if you've been out a while, you're probably not going to get hired at an entry-level position. Employers will probably think you're overqualified. And so what you need to do is position yourself to be able to be hired sort of at a somewhat more senior level. And to do that, you're going to have either substantive knowledge in a field, so that if you're already fairly expert in what you do, it's important to keep a foot in the door if you're going to take some time off and try to get back in. You can't just walk back in and say, I did this 6 years ago, and somebody hire you for that. You really need to find a way somehow to keep that going. The other thing that's really important, if you're going to be trying to go in for a more senior level position, is demonstrated leadership or management experience. It doesn't have to be paid. It can be volunteer, but leadership and management experience really stand out on a resume. And a lot of people don't have it. And if you do, and you're looking for something that's either a more senior substantive position or a more senior, kind of management type position, having that demonstrated experience that you can really put on your resume really makes a difference. And you should have that featured on your resume. It shouldn't be just, kind of like an also thing, because it's really important to have, kind of skills that, which, lawyers can all have, women can do this. Everybody can do it, but you need to have the evidence that you can do it and, be able to demonstrate that to be able to really get a position later on if you've been out of the workforce.
Beth, these are great tips and strategies, and I think your words ring true with Cathy and I, and also they'll ring true with our audience. Thank you for those wise words, especially being flexible and persistent. I think I work on that one every day. So, Beth, tell us a little bit about your mentoring work. I understand that you mentor others in your current role with the department.
Our office has about 10 attorneys, and when I first started, they mentored me. As we've talked about, we cover a huge variety of things. I hadn't worked in, district government. I didn't know, the laws or the regulations, and it was really new. So I really learned a lot from people, both in our office as well as other attorneys in district government. And now I've been at DOE for 7 years. And we actually have some new attorneys. So I've been able to pass on, kind of what I've learned. And it's really been great to do that. I'm happy always to talk with anyone interested in a career in environmental law, because I think it's such a great field. And I'm really happy to connect with and share with, people who'd like to talk about it. If anybody wants to contact me on LinkedIn, it's Beth Mullin, DC. I'd be happy really to talk with anybody who'd like to just discuss options or talk about what they could do.
That's such a generous offer, and I hope our listeners take you up on it. What sort of lessons would you share with the attorneys who are interested specifically in the energy and environmental law field?
Well, it's a fabulous field, and the issues are really important and interesting and crucial for all of us. And in environmental law, you really have an opportunity to make a difference. I'd like to put in a plug for working for the government, and particularly for local government. I think people sometimes don't think about that. They think federal government is the only place to work, and that's fabulous. But local government is also really wonderful and possibly easier to get a foot in the door there. The thing that I love about working for the government is you really can immediately make a difference at what's happening on the ground. And you're sort of, in a way, government is so thinly staffed that people are sort of responsible for just one thing, and they're the only person who does that. And whether or not you do a good job with that thing affects people's lives. It really matters. It affects the business community, it affects, the environment, it affects, how we live and work and, everything about it. So I think it's just a wonderful place to really provide public service. And so I encourage people to think about that. I think the other thing to think about is that it's important to keep developing skills that can be transferable. So if you want to, I'm obviously an example of somebody who, shifted focus and changed things over the years. But as attorneys, we all have skills that are transferable and that you can learn a new area of law. That's not hard to do. Well, it takes some doing, but it's not impossible. And you can also, bring your skills of critical thinking, advice, understanding issues, spotting issues, making recommendations, really can work in a lot of areas. And so I think to think flexibility about where you can use those skills is really important.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts about transferable skills and work in the public sector. In your career, you have had, as we've mentioned, a broad portfolio of energy and environmental law. What do you think for a new person entering the field is sort of an exciting developing area that you suggest that they would focus on?
Well, I think anything connected to energy or sustainability is great now. There are many more options than there used to be. When I started out, sort of in a way working for the nonprofit or a government, or, sort of on the business side was the area to work in environmental law. And obviously I'm now, most familiar with the government and nonprofit positions, but also the private sector is really burgeoning. There's ESG, kind of everywhere now. And so even if environment isn't your only focus, there's a lot of, ways to have, a toe in the water there. And it's happening all over, and really exciting time to be part of it. And the way I think about it is that anybody with property now has energy and environmental issues that they need to deal with. So even if you're thinking like a hospital or a university or anybody with land or a building is dealing with these issues. And so there's a way to work in this field, even if it's not your full-time job. And there are also a much bigger variety of full-time jobs than there once were. So I think it's a very exciting time to be working in this area and to have people who really actually care about kind of like environmental protection, whether they're in business or not, is really important and really great work.
That's a great perspective, and thank you for that information. All of us should see this environmental and energy law space and policy space as holistic, and I think you're telling us to look broadly to consider new areas for new attorneys. Thank you.
Beth, this is absolutely terrific information for everyone, for all of us. And we want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your highly impactful career and outstanding achievements with us. Beth, you are truly making a difference in people's lives and in environmental and energy law. And we so appreciate learning how you have succeeded and continue to help others succeed. We want to thank you, the DC Bar, the Women's Bar Association, and our listeners. And we invite you all to watch for our next Making a Difference podcast. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.